Hello everyone! Welcome to my channel, Bachelor Nation News fans. The Golden Bachelorette couple, Joan Vassos and Chock Chapple, have announced a new relationship milestone, and it's a win for the troubled Bachelor franchise, which had another tough year. Joan and Chock got engaged during the season finale of the Golden Bachelorette Season 1 in 2024, and they've been in a long-distance relationship ever since. Although the Bachelor franchise has been in turmoil for years, plagued with scandals and unsuccessful seasons, the Golden Bachelorette Season 1 stars Joan and Chock's latest relationship milestone is a wonderful thing that could inspire future Bachelor couples and remind viewers why they fell in love with the shows in the first place. The Golden Bachelorettes Joan Vassos and Chock Chapple are finally moving to New York City together. Joan and Chock got engaged at the end of the Golden Bachelorette Season 1 in late July 2024, but they never moved in together, choosing instead to keep their respective homes in Rockville, Maryland and Wichita, Kansas. However, during the finale, Chock had asked Joan if she'd like to move to New York City with him after the show, and she'd said yes. Fans were concerned, though, when that move never happened, despite the couple's attempts to find an apartment in the Big Apple. Now, in an interview with Us Weekly at iHeartRadio's 102.7K ISFM's Jingle Ball on Friday, December 5, 2025, Joan announced that she and Chock are finally moving in together in New York City after over a year of having a long-distance relationship. She revealed that they'll be spending the month of December there. Joan said, "We decided that we just wanted to be there to start the whole month of December because it's just so magical in New York City." Joan shared that she's moving from Maryland with all her stuff on Monday, December 8, 2025. She added, "Chock is joining me on Thursday. I have a couple of friends who are coming to help me move in, and then we're going to be there till January 7. Maybe we'll find a place." Joan admitted that she and Chock underestimated how challenging it would be to find a place to live in New York City, which was why the move took so long, and why they still don't seem to have a permanent home there. She shared, "We had no idea how hard it was to rent a place in New York City and how busy we were going to be." Joan and Chock's relationship milestone is a win for the Bachelor franchise. After so much turmoil for the Bachelor franchise in 2025, Joan and Chock's relationship milestone of finally moving in together is a win because they've beaten the odds. 2025 began with Grant Ellis's Bachelor season, which was heavily criticized for his indecisiveness, as he was torn between winner Juliana Pascarosa and runner-up Leisha Garrell until the very last minute before his engagement. Although Grant proposed to Juliana and she accepted, they broke up just a few months after their finale aired. Bachelor Nation was also outraged when, shortly after 66-year-old former NFL player Mel Owens was cast as the star of The Golden Bachelor Season 2, he announced that he only wanted to date women aged 45 to 60, and that he'd cut any woman over the age of 60 from his cast. Although Mel ended up giving a promise ring to 62-year-old Peg Munson during his finale, most fans couldn't get past Mel's original comments. In addition, Bachelor in Paradise fans were upset with the show's Season 10 twist, which included a monetary prize. After the series took a year-long hiatus, fans were disappointed that it came back with a completely different format. Another blow to the Bachelor franchise was the Golden Bachelor Season 1 star Jerry Turner's tell-all book, Golden Years: What I've Learned from Love, Loss, and Reality TV, which revealed the truth about how miserable he was before the Golden Wedding with his now ex-wife, Teresa Nist. This led to a public feud between them. However, Joan and Chock have proven that relationships from the Bachelor franchise can last if they're done right. Unlike Jerry and Teresa, who practically ran down the aisle after their season ended, Joan and Chock have taken things very slowly. They've spent the past year really getting to know one another before jumping into living together or marriage. Joan and Chock's long-lasting relationship is evidence that the Bachelor franchise is still relevant, as long as the couples stay grounded and allowed their love to grow naturally after the show. They've stayed together for a lot longer than most recent Bachelor Nation couples, which is a fantastic sign that their relationship will last forever. Joan and Chock's decision to take things slowly after the Golden Bachelorette will help them to live happily ever after.
Always believed that love arrived like sunrise, quiet, steady, and rarely when expected. And as the first ever Golden Bachelorette, she carried the hopes of millions of viewers who wanted proof that romance, passion, and companionship didn't expire with age. But as the season wrapped, the world got far more than they bargained for. Because Joan didn't just pick a partner. She found the spark she thought she'd lost forever. And his name was Chock Chapple, the man who managed to be both charmingly chaotic and incredibly sincere, a combination that television producers considered priceless. The moment that changed everything. It began on a breezy fall evening in Santa Fe, where the final rose ceremony unfolded under soft lanterns and the glow of an oversized harvest moon. Joan, dressed in champagne satin and nerves, stood gripping the final rose. Chock looked at her the way one looks at a memory they hope to create, not with hunger, but with tenderness. When she handed him the rose, the crowd behind the cameras felt it. This wasn't a TV moment. It was a human one, the kind they chase but rarely catch, the kind that makes a franchise suddenly feel new again. The milestone no one expected. 3 months after the finale, viewers expected the usual playful interviews, cautious optimism, maybe even a joint vacation post on Instagram. What they didn't expect was the headline that hit entertainment sites one quiet Tuesday morning. Joan Vassos and Chock Chapple make a big move, literally. The couple had purchased a small lakeside home together, complete with sunroom, garden beds, and a long wraparound porch perfect for golden hour kisses. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't staged, it wasn't a PR stunt. It was real. For a franchise often criticized for producing short-lived love stories, this was the win they desperately needed. The House of New Beginnings. The first night in their new home was, in Chock's words, beautifully messy. Boxes everywhere, Joan trying to find her reading glasses for 2 hours, Chock burning the chicken dinner he insisted he could cook without a recipe. But then something happened that they would both remember forever. As Joan stepped into the half-unpacked living room, she found Chock setting up a vinyl record player. He placed the needle gently on the record and held out his hand. "Dance with me," he said. She laughed. "There's no space." "There's always space," he whispered, "when you're dancing with the right person." Barefoot in a maze of cardboard boxes, they slow danced to an old soulful melody while the lake breeze drifted through their open windows. For the first time in years, Joan felt weightless. And for the first time in his life, Chock understood what it felt like to be truly chosen. America falls in love again. When the couple appeared in a surprise segment during The Golden Bachelor after the final rose, producers expected standard updates. Instead, Joan shared something unexpectedly heartfelt. "We didn't want a relationship built on cameras. We wanted one built on mornings and walks and burnt dinners and figuring out where to put the couch." Chock added with a grin, "Still not where I want it." The audience roared with laughter, not because it was funny, but because it was authentic. That authenticity sparked something. Viewers who once doubted the franchise now believed again. Love wasn't just for the young, it wasn't just for ratings, it was for anyone brave enough to try. The franchise's biggest win. The network quickly realized Joan and Chock had become ambassadors of something bigger than a TV show. They symbolized hope. Not the loud, dramatic kind, the gentle kind that grows quietly, like tomatoes in Joan's new garden, or the slow dance in their box-filled living room. Their milestone, moving in together so intentionally, so tenderly, became a beacon for fans young and old. Social media exploded with comments like, "Goals! This is the love story we needed. Finally, something real." And even critics admitted this wasn't only a win for Joan and Chock, it was the franchise's most genuine victory in years. A porch for two. Every evening at sunset, Joan and Chock sit on their lakeside porch, hands intertwined, watching the water shimmer like the future they're building one slow, steady day at a time. No cameras, no pressure, just two souls choosing each other again and again. And if you asked Joan today what she thinks about the journey, she'd smile softly and say, "Love doesn't come when you expect it. It comes when you're finally ready to receive it." Chock would add in his signature playful tone. And when you do, you better be ready for the adventure. Their relationship milestone wasn't just a personal achievement. It wasn't just romantic. It was a reminder that love stories, real ones, don't end with a final rose. They begin after. And theirs had only just started.
Wasn't the end of their milestone. It was the beginning of a beautiful adjustment. Joan, ever organized, labeled every storage bin in the house. Chock, who once bragged about being spontaneous to a fault, left half-open bags of snacks in random places like treasure hunts. One morning, Joan walked into the kitchen to find Chock sitting on the floor trying to assemble a shelf he'd bought impulsively online at 2 a.m. She raised an eyebrow. Instructions? He held up a crumpled paper. I skimmed. Joan laughed, the kind of laugh she hadn't felt in years, light and uncontrollable. She kneeled beside him, grabbed the screwdriver, and said, "Move over. We're doing this together." And that became their unofficial motto. Together is better. The visit that touched the nation. A month after the move, the couple made a quiet visit to a local senior community center. They weren't filming, they weren't promoting anything. They were simply invited to speak to a group of older adults about love later in life. Joan talked about courage. Chock talked about second chances. And together, they told a love story that wasn't about being perfect, but being present. When a widower asked, voice trembling, "Isn't it scary to fall in love again after so much loss?" Joan walked over and took his hand and said softly, "It's terrifying, but loneliness is scarier. And love, even late love, is worth the fear." The man wiped tears from his eyes. And in that moment, someone in the back quietly recorded the exchange, posted it online, and within 48 hours, the clip hit 17 million views. America wasn't just watching Joan and Chock, they were rooting for them. The night they almost gave up. Of course, even golden love has shadows. One night, after a small misunderstanding spiraled into a bigger one, Joan sat on the porch alone, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the lake. She wondered if blending two grown lives was harder than she'd expected. Chock joined her quietly, sitting a few inches away. After a long silence, he whispered, "I know I'm messy, stubborn, set in my ways." Joan sighed. "And I'm controlling and sometimes impatient." He shook his head gently. "No. You're careful. That's why we work." She looked at him, eyes softening. "We're trying to unlearn 60 years of habits. We're bound to clash." Chock reached over, intertwining his fingers with hers. Then he said words that would stay with her forever. "If we have to unlearn every habit we've ever had to learn how to love each other better, then I'm ready. Just don't give up on me." Joan leaned into him, letting her head rest on his shoulder as the lake shimmered under the moonlight. They didn't fix every problem that night, but they held on to each other, and sometimes that's enough. The franchise celebrates its unlikely heroes. When producers saw the viral senior center video, they invited Joan and Chock to return for a special episode titled Love at Any Age, a Golden Bachelorette Reunion. No drama, no manufactured tension, just joy. Joan was radiant in a soft sapphire dress, and Chock proudly wore a tie she had picked out and ironed because he still hadn't learned how to do it correctly. During the interview, the host asked, "Many people say your milestone, moving in together, changed how they view the franchise. What does that mean to you?" Joan smiled thoughtfully. "If our love helps even one person believe that their story isn't over, then it's bigger than television." Chock nodded. "Our milestone was moving in together, but the real milestone is waking up every day and choosing each other again."
The audience gave them a standing ovation. For once, reality TV felt real. A golden future. The next spring, Joan and Chock planted a garden behind their lake home. Tomatoes, basil, lavender, roses, everything Joan loved. Chock insisted on adding chili peppers for personality, which Joan found hilarious because he couldn't handle spice. Every morning they walked through the garden, coffee mugs in hand, discussing everything and nothing. One day, Joan paused to admire a new rose bloom. Chock stepped beside her and whispered, "Crazy, isn't it?" "What is?" "That we found each other when most people said it was too late." Joan took his hand and squeezed gently. It wasn't late. It was right on time. Chock kissed her forehead. "Then I guess the rest of our time is going to be pretty beautiful." And as the sun rose over their little lake, painting the world in gold, Joan realized something. Their milestone wasn't just important for the franchise. It wasn't just inspiring for viewers. It wasn't even just healing for the two of them. It was a reminder to the world that love, true, generous, mature love, doesn't fade. It evolves. It deepens. It surprises. And for Joan and Chock, the best part of the story was simple. The next chapter hadn't even been written yet.